you are recording. Make sure that everybody knows it says. So that's what I'm officially doing. So
Okay.
hello, everyone. I can see Sam and Stan. And Demian, can you wave and indicate you can hear me okay? All right,
Teacher.
excellent. Now I'm going to flip my camera around and we're going to get started. So this is where I suggest, perhaps for my benefit, turn your cameras off so that it's not hogging up bandwidth. Keep your microphones deleted or muted so that I can not hear you for now. And then just make sure your chat box is open, because it's within the chat box that I would like you to try to communicate with me during this thing, because we will have several parts to our agenda here today. So the first thing I'm going to do is give you an idea of where I am, and then we're going to go inside and get a tour of some spaces, both unfinished and finished, with the managing director of the investment firm that acquired this property. So we are
Al, you have to, Al,
yes.
you have to turn the camera because now we are laying on the ground.
And someone's trying to get in the
Yeah,
lobby. All right.
that's the way it should. Yeah, that's wrong and that's okay. Yeah.
Okay. So
Perfect.
we are on 5550 West Touhy Avenue in what is called Des Plaines, Illinois. We are about 1 mile or so immediately north of the city of Chicago. The city of Chicago has the streets that I'm on, Touhy and Central. These are both actually city streets. So if I took Touhy further east, I would be in Chicago. Or if I took Central further south, I would be in Chicago. So I'm actually just out on the fringe. And one of the reasons that the fringe is slightly more attractive is because the real estate taxes on a per square footage basis are cheaper here. One of the things you'll hear Matt talk about today is how one of the attractors to the business was the fact that we have Chase, who is a major financial institution publicly traded in the United States, who has a long-term lease on the rent roll and is one of the largest financial players in the Chicago market. So it demands a lot of foot and car traffic for local suburban customers. Additionally, you notice that there is a branding on top of the building indicating who one of his major tenants is and has been. And if I'm not mistaken, that sign was there when Matt acquired the building. When we start thinking about common area maintenance, then you notice that the first car traffic for the morning is starting to come in, because in most commercial real estate developments, you are going to have a required allotment of parking on a per square foot of the building basis. Americans, unlike the Dutch, do not ride many bikes, and we certainly do not ride them to work. And so we have massive parking on both the front end, and then I'll show you out the back end too, that there is a requirement. Notice there are no ways to park bicycles anywhere, but instead what we have in front of you is a giant parking machine, all 6'6" worth of Mr. Matt Bauman, managing director of Crosstown Real Estate Advisors, and a very good friend of mine. I'm going to keep my microphone on just for the time being and talk to you before we head inside. Then when we head inside, we'll both talk together at the same thing. All right? So this is Matt. Matt, I don't know how many people we have on here today, but gang, periodically, I'm going to mute my camera just so I can walk a few steps, and then we'll reestablish. So I'm muting. I'll be right back. Okay, Sam, I can see you. Can you hear me okay? All right, one of the things that Matt wanted me to mention to you. So here I am at the main entrance of this building. When he acquired the building, the Chase tenant was already there, but on the front left side was only a set of windows and vacant behind it. The tenant that is there now is another credit union. It's a smaller financial institution, but it is a competitor to the Chase along the way. So the only way Matt could get them to sign a longer term lease was he had to build a brand new entrance for them into the building that is a standalone entrance so that their customers can come here. So that would be an example of capital expenditures required in order to attract your rent roll. Because over here is the main entrance of the building, and that's where we're heading in now. Notice while we're in the US, I have Matt mention his sign only says that face masks are strongly encouraged because it's his private building and that's what he's choosing. You'll see an elevator regulation in a moment though. And then notice he's also required to post this please practice social distancing and keep 6 feet away. And now I have to pause to put my mask on. As we are talking right now, Matt, we're actually is doing apparently some common area maintenance and taking this sign down.
So the masks in Illinois now, and in this town in particular, are now required. So if you look at that sign right there, that sign's correct.
Yeah.
This sign was never changed, and it should have been.
So Matt is now making his building in compliance with local legislation requiring face masks.
So one of the things, before we get into the nuts and bolts of the building, I'm going to keep my face mask off for now until someone comes in. But one of the things that you'll note here is that the lobby is very, very dated. In other words, the carpeting in here is a very deep, rich burgundy red mixed with blues and browns. Very, very dated. If you look on the trim here, this faux marble looking material is also very, very dated. The directory is an old directory that's where if we have a new tenant or a change of tenant, we actually have to go in here and back here, we have to have these things done off-site and then installed. So all of that is going to be changing. We're actually changing the ceiling in here. We're changing the lobby. We just had a designer in a couple days ago to present the what their idea was for an upgraded lobby, and we really like it, and so we're going to go with that. This lobby isn't very large. You'll notice the building itself is only 50,000 square feet, and so it's the extent of the lobby renovation is not as drastic as it would be in a larger building.
So there's the first number for you to be noting in a tour like this as compared to our samples. Is Matt suggested that this building is about 55,000 square feet?
50,000 rentable square feet.
50,000 rentable square feet. Sam, thumbs up. Can you hear us saying that okay? All right, great.
Okay. Included in the lobby renovation is a renovation of our bathrooms, our first floor bathrooms, which are very, very clean, as you will notice when you come in and smell. Al.
It smells delightful in here, like I could eat breakfast off the floor.
We won't be doing that, but what I will tell you is that everything in here is going to be changed out. So from the tile floor to the wall coverings to the lighting to the sink to the countertop in there, all the fixtures, the urinals and the toilet are going to stay, but these are all going to be the dividers here for the toilet are all going to be changed as well.
And you've owned this building for how long now?
So we bought the building in July of we closed in mid-July of 2017.
2017.
So 3.5 years.
So you have been accruing for capital expenditures over the last several years
Correct.
in preparation of this.
Correct. We have been setting aside money every year in order to properly pay for something like this.
Gotcha. Try not to let the bathroom door hit me.
One of the unique things about this property, it's 50,000 square feet, and which a little bit unusual. A typical 50,000 up to maybe even 100,000 square foot building would not have an amenity base that a building like this has, and I'm going to take you there right now, which requires us to get on the elevator. So.
All right, I'm going to double mute here. I might lose you because I'm going in an elevator. If so, I'll log right back in. Hey, Sam, give me a thumbs up. Can you see us okay? All right, excellent.
Okay, so this is one of the unique things. We are now in the lower level of our building. And the lower level here has typical ceiling heights, has normal ceiling heights. However, when we bought this building, they did not use any of this space they didn't monetize any of this space other than the storage area. So they created a tenant lounge, which is a nice place for people to go if they want to take their lunches from upstairs and they don't want to eat in their offices. We can come down here. We have a big screen television, a flat screen TV in here, some tables. It gets cleaned. We have a microwave, some other nice features in here. So this is a nice thing to have for a building of this size. It's very atypical. Most 50 to 100 or even smaller to 100,000 square foot buildings would want to monetize every inch of the building to the best of their ability. Fortunately, we don't need to do that here as we have a full building and really an A+ location. So with that, we also have a shared conference room for the building. So what's important about something like this is that it's a small conference. This is a small conference room, and then next door I have a very large conference room. But what's important about something like this is if you're a company like we have on the first floor, we have Admiral Security, and they do a ton of training for their security staff, and they don't want to have a giant facility in their space that they're paying for every day, right? So they're able to use this pretty regularly as part of their rent. And I'll show you the large conference space because this one is a little bit more impressive in terms of the size.
One would presume then, when you have additional amenities like this available for the building, you'd have to adjust that common area maintenance allocation because you're absorbing more space.
Yeah, I mean, we don't actually do that here. We don't. The lower level here is, the footprint of the lower level is not included in the common area. However, all of the maintenance of it, so all the cleaning, vacuuming, anything, all the electricity that we use down here is part of common area maintenance. And most buildings charge their tenants for utilizing space like this.
Yeah.
We haven't done that yet, in large part because we have a full building and it's really not. We find it to be a really nice amenity, and the tenants really appreciate that here. And one of the things that we're very proud of is that 70% of the tenants that we have in this building have been here an average of 25 years.
Get out. 70% have been here 25 years.
Which is unheard of. Across any of my portfolio, anybody that I know, nobody has built a building like that. And so it speaks volumes about the location, about the way the building is maintained. I'd like to think it speaks volume about us, but we've really only owned the building for 3.5 of those 25 years. So as much as I want to pat myself on the back, it's really more attributed to other factors. And so, again, we didn't want to come in and then start immediately charging tenants for amenities like this when they hadn't been charged in the past. nor is it really
Hmm.
very lucrative. It's actually more of a pain for us, administrative pain, to just charge people $50 or $100 an hour to go through and use this for an hour or two, you know, every something. It's just not worth the time and effort. So we don't do that. I'll take you to I'll show you the storage area, which is actually, we did monetize the storage area. And that is in large part because tenants keep stuff in here permanently, as opposing to utilize it periodically. They use it all, you know, this is utilized 24/7. So this is a caged storage area.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is really nice down here. We've cleaned it up. Sorry, we've cleaned it up considerably and made it very user friendly in here, and allowed our tenants to store things down here. Like this company that I mentioned earlier. They store all their uniforms down here. So again, this area. The cost for this on a per square foot basis is very, very low in comparison to upstairs, where our average rent upstairs is around $25 a square foot. Down here, you can rent storage space for around $10 a square foot gross, like all in.
Are those tuxedos right there in case they have to do security at like a black tie event?
Yeah, there's a little bit of everything down through the jackets and some other, So it's pretty interesting. And so we have a lot of law firms in here and professional services, and so there's a lot of files. Probably dead storage files at this point. I would imagine that a lot of the stuff could probably be eliminated. But we have accountants in here and financial services. And so, you know, if you can imagine having to have a room in your office of this size and you're paying $25 a square foot versus coming down here and just paying, you know, kind of a nominal fee for it. So that's very attractive to our tenants.
So give them some sense. In your 50,000 rentable square feet, then how many tenants do you currently have?
We have 22 tenants in the building.
Okay. And
I'd like to have 23. That's we do have a small office, a satellite office for ourselves, which I'll show you, but you'll see why I want to have another tenant in there versus a satellite office, because it's not being utilized to its full capacity.
So 22 out of 23. So of the 50,000 square feet, how many are rented approximately?
22 of the 23.
No, but on a square foot basis, you have 50,000 square feet.
Oh, we have, we're 90, so we have 2,000 square feet available.
2,000 square feet available.
96%
Okay.
occupied.
So 96% occupied, and an average per square foot rent in the neighborhood of $25 a square foot. Excellent, gang. I'm going to put you on mute again, and we'll see you in a new room.
So Jelmar is.
All right, here we go. Back on.
So this is the second floor of the building, and this is our largest tenant, Jelmar, which they make a product called CLR, amongst other things.
Oh, really?
Turtle wax, etc. This is their headquarters, and they're a worldwide company. This is their their US headquarters. Their lease is coming up in the summer of 22. And one of the things that they've asked for is an update to the corridors. So if you can see in here, these corridors, again, very, very dated, hideous carpeting. The lighting is all fluorescent versus the new LEDs that we have pretty much everywhere throughout this building. The wall coverings are very, very light and faded. You can see the ceilings, which we hate. Bathrooms are dated as well. Very similar to the first floor. These bathrooms we again had a designer in a couple days ago. She pitched, an update, a finished update for everything in here, and we've approved it. And so we're going to start working on this. And again, this isn't hugely extensive, right? Every floor here is approximately 12,500 square feet.
Okay.
And so the corridors in here are quite small.
Right, they are.
Compared to other buildings that we have. And so the extent of this, well, it sounds like it's a lot. It really is just, a couple of rows of ceiling and flooring and wall coverings. And we're going to do a chair rail across here to break up. We're going to do a lighter color up here, a little bit darker down here. It's going to make a world of difference for everybody that comes in here. This was in a vacancy when we bought this building. Suite 202 was vacant, and Suite 202 is
Hello.
now a First Financial Credit Union has expanded up into that space. So that is a little bit of a difference on this floor. That when we started, that space was empty.
Let me ask a devil's question then.
Mm-hmm.
If you've had tenants on average here greater than 20 years, why bother spending any money?
So that's a great question, and that's a question that we struggle with mightily, because you really technically shouldn't do anything. I mean, if by the book, you would say don't spend a dime while you have a full building and you have tenants of this tenure. But ultimately, when you look at a corridor like this, I like to be very proud of the buildings that we own, and I think of it as like arm candy. So when I go by it and I look at it, I want to say, hey man, I'm really proud to own that. And I am very proud to own this building, don't get me wrong, but when I walk in the lobby, it's been 3.5 years of looking at it and going, this has got to be changed.
Yeah.
And really it's the first impression that you get. And so when we have a vacancy, which we do right now, we have one vacancy, when someone walks through that door, their first impression matters. Whether you like it or you don't, that first impression matters. And if they're impressed by what they see, it's likely that that's going to be in their head. They're not going to use that as something to take out your building. In other words, they're going to look for an excuse not to want to rent from you versus somebody else. And the lobby might very well be a very good excuse not to rent from somebody. So we're going to really make the lobby pop here. And this floor, in large part, the reason that we're going to do this floor is because we really want to keep these guys and keep them happy. And they have mentioned it to us that they would like it updated, and therefore we know that it needs to be updated, and therefore it's and again, it's when you see the expense for this as compared to what they're bringing in, it's a no-brainer.
So with your largest tenancy and 50,000 square feet, how much do they occupy?
7,235 square feet.
Approximately 7,235 square feet.
And typically in the buildings that we own, we do not like to have tenants that occupy more than 10% of the
more than 10%.
In large part because if you lose a tenant like that, it's a pretty significant hit to your overall. I mean, that's 14% of our rent roll.
Yeah.
And so that's a that's a tough pill to swallow if we're to lose them. So that's a large part why we are being very accommodating. And why you would be accommodating in that case. So we can't really get into that space.
This is actually fantastic.
Yeah.
For those of you who are hockey fans, this gentleman here has been known as the voice of Chicago for 30 years, 40 years. Yeah. He does the singing of the national anthem at hockey games all over the U.S. and especially the Blackhawks and Cubs, our baseball team.
Yeah, he does Cubs. Yeah. I mean, he does pretty much at bowls, most everything. So we'll go upstairs. Let me see if
all right.
Cannabis Tree is open.
Let me go ahead and mute you both. We're about to head in the elevator.
Let me see.
Thank you so much. So we were given access, and we're just going to stay here momentarily so we don't disrupt normal people's business. But we wanted to show briefly what a finished physical space might look like. So you notice we came in through the front door, and now we're curling around to the side to where the main offices are, heading now here, because they do financial advisory services too, right? Professional services, insurance. So they too then have more of a traditional professional services feel. And they here then, just to give you some perspective, Valerie Matthews from the Blinds are here pointing out over where we started the tour on the corner, overlooking a major thoroughfare in the city of, are we Niles or Des Plaines? I always forget. So unlike what Matt was talking about before, they have their own standalone conference room in this space. You notice the decor is much more updated. You have much more individual capital expenditure going on here so that they can have the look and feel that they would like. Here is the delightful princess that let us in. Say hello to the Netherlands. And now I will excuse myself from their space and let them get back to their workday. And Matt and I will go and meet you in a raw space. This would be an excellent time for you all to get up and stretch for 5 minutes, take a break, and we will come back when we are settled in downstairs.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a happy Christmas.
So guys, first part, we wait 5 minutes.
Yeah, we're taking a break.
Taking a break. Yeah, just taking a break. The Merry Christmas was for the people in the building. Not yet for you.
Really kind of hoping that they're there.
The Dutch will appreciate this, Matt, since they were the pioneers in Europe. But this is what business now?
So the name of this business is Cannabis Street, and they came in and took over one of our largest. This is a large tenant as well, 5,067 square feet, and they they make cannabis infused products for the recreational, medical marijuana field. And so if you think of liquids and the gummies and all the rest of it, they do unique type products, CBD oils and all the things you all know about, but are becoming part of our lexicon here a little bit more as we as time goes by. So we only have recreational marijuana here approved in 2019, and I think it was 2019 or 20. I think it was
Approved 18, systematized in 19.
19, right? So we haven't. I mean, it's still relatively new here, and it's an exploding industry, as you might imagine.
Yeah. So a renter or a lessee,
Yeah.
like this wouldn't have existed 5 years ago.
Correct. And this space, which I would have loved to have gotten you through, but I didn't get approval from them.
That's okay.
Is a space that used to be an accounting firm that had been here for 20 some odd years. These guys moved in last year. We updated everything in here. We didn't have to do a lot with the existing structure, so a lot of the private offices along the window line remain, but all the carpeting, all the paint, all of the fixtures in there, all new LED fixtures, new ceiling grid. You can see the difference even, you know, there's a white light in here versus a yellow light out here. And that's,
yeah, you can see the difference.
Yeah, that's the difference in the genre of LED as well. So this will be updated eventually with new ceiling grid. I'm sorry, new ceiling tiles and the newest LED light fixtures. These are a little bit dated, but still a lot better than what we saw in the last one. And we have a lot of tenants up here that have been here for quite some time as well. So we'll go downstairs now and
All right.
that vacant space that we have.
Last trip on the elevator. We'll be right back.
This is
All right.
okay. So this is the largest satellite office that one person could ever have. And this is the one person's desk. This is our employee who works here. We have him here because we were full in our other office back in the city of Chicago. And so we asked him to come out here. He lives very close by. He doesn't mind. But this is a gigantic office, and it's also our only vacancy in the building. And you can see it's just a giant rectangle. In here, we updated the ceiling grid and the LED lights so that a new tenant, when they come in, could see exactly what a finished product could look like. All the ceiling or all the flooring in here is brand new. We wanted to show them kind of what that would look like. It's a lot cleaner than what it looked before. It was very dated before. It was when you walked in, you instantly felt like you were in an old space. And now, because when we update something like this, it now looks and feels a lot newer, clean, crisp, and ready to be built, frankly. So there's, we have plans in here to do, this is the entrance to the space, and we would do a corridor right here. We would just do private offices, maybe a conference room in this corner, private offices along the window line. We have a nice little notch out here for a kitchen, and the bathrooms are just on the other side of this. So our water lines are just on the other side of this wall, which makes doing a kitchenette quite simple. And then we would have the rest of the space kind of open for cubicles. So you can see how a space like this comes together in a final form. And I'll show you, I have a plan what I can show you because we have a plans drawn up for a concept for us to move our offices here and a concept for a medical user to move a medical facility.
So you're talking around 2,000 square feet in
2,000
here
rentable square feet
at about $25 per square foot. So you're talking about a $5,000
$250 or so a month
infusion into your rent income every month. But it would require, you think, how much in capital expenditure to get it on the market to that point?
Somewhere in the $40,000 to $50,000. So it's a year of rent.
A year of rent.
So, but if you look at it, if you think of it strictly as an investment, so when we analyze a deal to do, like if someone came in here and said, I like this space, I want you to build it out for me in XYZ form. We look at this, how we look at this is we say, how much money is it going to cost me to do that? And what's my return going to be over that 5-year period? I don't factor in mortgage or insurance or any common area or taxes. I look at it strictly as today's capital. I'm going to have to write a check for $50,000. What is my return on that $50,000 going to produce? And I look at it strictly from that factor, and that's how we determine whether we like a deal or not.
And your normal evaluation is a 5-year term
For something like this, if we had to build it out a 5-year term, if we were upstairs in one of these finished spaces and someone was able to take it mostly like it was, but for new carpeting and paint, I could do a 3-year deal for something like that, because that's not as, so the costs we look to amortize over that period of time. And then we look at what that return looks like. And we do factor in CAM and taxes off of the gross number. So it's a $25 square foot gross number coming in.
Yeah.
I amortize the tenant improvements and leasing commissions. And I also take out the CAM and taxes. I do actually factor that in to get a net return on investment.
Okay.
We look at it in a very simple form like that.
Sure.
Versus taking into account mortgage and everything else. You don't need to do that in a situation like this when the building's already carrying itself.
Yeah, so you're looking at unlevered returns since you're already there. Got it. Great. Well, let's do this. Do you want to pop a laptop down for a minute? We can sit. We can do a little Q&A with the students. Okay. I'm going to get mine going this week. I'm going to put you on hold here for a second while Matt and I set up so we can have a little dialogue. All right, Sam, can you hear me okay?
You're echoing a bit, but it's good. Yeah, it's understandable.
I just turned off my other device, so I should be okay now. So give me a thumbs up, Sam. You can see Matt okay too? Excellent. All right, so with our last little time here, I wanted Matt to have the opportunity to talk through this building in terms of the same logical analysis that I have instructed you guys to do as it relates to his experience in deciding when to buy this building, how to buy this building, who to bring it along with you on the deal, and then how things have gone since. So you'd mentioned, Matt, that this deal came first to you in 2017. How did you find out about this deal?
So the building was put on the market. Forgive me, I have to put the old man glasses on. The building was put onto the market by a company called HFF, which is a Holiday Finiglio Folio, which is a large investment sales company that typically puts out Class A and Class B plus buildings in A plus markets like Chicago. They're not a B minus suburban investment sales company like the typical ones that we see every day. So the building was in my estimation, was put into the hands of somebody that their database only flows to institutional type investors and not to the little guys like us. And I happened to catch it kind of on the fly, and I saw the building. I know the building very well. Both Al and I live in Park Ridge, which is not that far from here. I drive by here all the time, and I've always liked this building. I love the location. The location is, we are a mere minute or two from a major expressway that takes you to the north suburbs, the North Shore suburbs of Chicago, and also takes you right downtown. And it also has, in this area, there's 640,000 square feet of retail, which makes it a very, very, very good amenity type building. But ultimately, when I saw it, I was very excited right off the bat. I saw all of the same attributes that I've mentioned before, the list of tenants who have been here for as long as they have, the average rents in here. The one thing, this was the original developer was Missner, and they've done a ton of stuff here in the north suburbs. They were the ones who were selling the building. So I love, there's a box that I check in my head is buy the building from the original developer, because they know where all of the bodies are buried, so to speak. There was no question as to when we bought this building as to the condition of the property. I know how they maintain their buildings. I know their program, right? I've seen how they programmatically maintain HVAC and roofs and building systems. And so we knew going into this that I wasn't getting like a third or a fourth generation type building where I didn't know that there were going to be surprises along the way. So there were no surprises here, which is number one, right? No surprises, which is great. The other thing I liked about it was the rent roll. As I mentioned before, we don't like buildings where 10% or more is one tenant. Now, this building has one that is a little bit north of 10%, but everybody else is either at 10% or below. So in that situation, you don't get crushed when you lose a tenant or two, right? So there are many situations where I've looked at buildings before, like let's say it's a 50,000 square foot building that has a 20,000 square foot tenant whose lease is expiring in 2 or 3 years. Well, that to me is a very, very tricky situation. You have to buy that thing incredibly well, and you have to set aside a ton of money because you got to try to renew these guys. And in fact, if you can't renew them, then you have to replace them, which is incredibly expensive. That's legit. 40% of your building would have to be replaced if they were to leave. And that can sink a building. And so very, very typically, I like smaller multi-tenant type buildings. I want you to think of a building like this as an apartment building. In an apartment building, let's say I bought a 100-unit apartment building and I lose 5 tenants. Is that going to hurt me at all in a 100-unit apartment building? Absolutely not, right? Same type of concept here. I don't want to have to worry about losing my building if I happen to lose a handful of tenants, and that's the situation here. And that's also the situation at the building that we looked at last time with Professor Al's last class. But that's very, very typical of the type of multi-tenant building that we like to buy. And so you combine the really strong rent roll. At the time that we bought the building, it was 87% occupied, which means that there was room for upside here.
Mm-hmm.
The market itself has a vacancy. So the market vacancy for North Suburban office is probably more like 18 to 20% right
18
now.
to 20%.
Right.
Okay. And you're at 96.
And we're at 96 right
Okay.
now. Which again, to me, if you locate the building well and you maintain it well and you present it well and you even though your rents might be a little bit higher than your competition, which ours are most definitely higher than the competition, the reason that we're able to do that is because we check all of the surrounding boxes for a tenant. We have the amenities that they don't have. We have the hidden amenities, right, which are the restaurants. I have a dozen restaurants within walking distance out the front door.
Mhm.
You don't have to get in your car. You can legit walk across the street and have access to a dozen restaurants. That's like having a food court in your building, except that you're in Chicago and you could be freezing your ass off, which sucks. But generally speaking, it checks a lot of boxes for a lot of smaller tenants, and it speaks volumes about why this building has been historically well occupied. So when we initially were going through the due diligence on this building, we put it under contract. We came in and started doing our inspections, our physical inspections of this property. We ran across a psychology firm that wanted to be in this building. And so while we were in our due diligence, we signed, I'm getting right to the good part. We signed a new tenant. I mean, there was negotiations and it was a headache and blah, blah, blah. But we signed a new tenant in this building while in negotiations with them. And that tenant, the tenant size was big enough to bring us to that was a 2,085 square foot tenant, which is, again, that's 4% of your building, which is a nice little lift right off the bat into the deal. And that brought in, that 2,000 square foot tenant brought in $52,000 a year annually.
So when you're doing your initial estimations, are you predicting the future rent roll on the basis of inheritance? Or are you assuming you're going to occupy those spaces above and beyond where it is?
So we look at the building at 87% occupied. We look at that and we say the building is 100% occupied right now. Anything above and beyond that is gravy.
So you pretend like it's not even a possibility.
Pretend like it's not there.
Got it.
Okay. So I look at it and I say, what do I maintain this? I'm buying it at a number, at a cap rate, which was at the time was 10%. So I'm buying it at 100% occupied at 10% cap rate, which means I have what is my margin for error? How many can I lose and still maintain myself? So we figure out what that metric is, and we say, you can almost say yay or nay right there. You can say, well, this has got legs because I can, I have, because of the amount of tenants in here, I can afford to lose a handful of them and be okay. And by the way, I also have 13% left of my building that I can still occupy with others. And that's kind of the way it went. We knew that the occupancy in this building has always been historically high. And so we were predicting a little bit, we didn't do our normal conservative, woe is me type prediction. We used a little bit more of an aggressive model on this thing, knowing that that again, when we were going into it, you're automatically coming in with another 4. We're already goosing the NOI immediately by $50,000. And those costs can be accumulated. And we knew that build out was going to be costly, but we were able to put that money into the deal right off the bat. So I didn't have to worry about there wasn't any question marks about what that money raise was going to be. And so when we went to raise money for something like this, we look at the next couple of years of lease expirations and we say, what is it going to cost us to renew those tenants, assuming that they stay? And again, the model that we have assumes a 75-25 chance of them staying. And so it spits out a number to us that takes into account a 75 chance of them renewing at X dollars and the 25% chance of them not renewing, which is going to cost me a lot bigger number. And it blends those numbers together and it spits out a number that I need to make sure that I have in the bank for the next couple of years.
Let me see if I can answer Simeon's question that he asked, because his question was, how are you able to maintain a 96% occupancy rate? And it sounded to me like A, you knew you had a building that was located well.
Yeah.
B, you were able to spruce it up to the point where you knew that it was a good space to be in. And then C, you were able to present it well.
Yeah, I mean, that all goes along, that's for sure is a large part of this thing. And again, you take care of your tenants like anything. I mean, you treat your tenants the way that you would want to be treated, and you will keep them forever. I can promise you. We give them no reason to leave you other than they don't like your location, because that's the only thing I can't change about this whole situation is the location.
Yeah.
I can change everything else. I can change a corridor to appease them. I can upgrade bathrooms. I can upgrade our lobby. I can do different things here and there. We do holiday parties here. We did a summer, well, we were until the pandemic hit. We are this year, in lieu of giving them baskets of goods, because we're wary of people, their safety concerns, whether that's fictitious or not is a whole different other story. But instead of doing baskets, like a nice holiday basket for them with a card, a holiday card, we're actually going to make a donation. We have a tenant in here, an Alzheimer's foundation in here, who I know is, like every other nonprofit, is struggling, and so we're making a significant donation to them on behalf of the rest of the tenants in the building. And we're sending that out in our card, and we're saying, here's what we're doing for you this year. And it's a gesture that we hope resonates with everybody, and especially in the spirit of what's going on in this country. But that speaks volumes in the world. But that speaks volumes about how close we are and how close we need to be to these tenants. And it doesn't mean I'm buddies with them. It doesn't mean I can walk into anybody's space and they know exactly who I am. We just saw that.
Right.
Most of the time I'm not around. It's my partner, John, is the one who runs the maintenance and the management of these properties. I have a part in dealing with all the contracts here, but that's less of a face-to-face kind of a thing. So when I come out here, it's nice to see these guys and introduce myself, and so they know who I am, because I talk to them on the phone invariably. But again, you want to stay close to the tenants to a point where you always know where their hot buttons are, and you know what you need to do to keep them very, very happy.
Let me back up and provide some additional context. You mentioned earlier your portfolio. So how many buildings do you have right now, approximately?
I would say a dozen.
A dozen. How much total square footage does that represent?
Oh boy, I was hoping you weren't going to ask me that.
Approximately. What's your average building size?
Out there, we have our average building size is probably about like here, 50,000 square feet.
So 50,000 square feet, so 6 million.
Yeah, no, 600,000.
600,000, sorry, one too many zeros.
Yeah, I don't have anything, we're not in the millions yet in square footage. But I would say our total portfolio size is roughly $60 million.
$60 million in total assets under management, of which maybe 600,000 square feet total. Average rent per square foot across the whole portfolio, $20.
That's really hard to say, because now you're blending industrial rates, which are very, very low, with apartment rates, which are very different, with office rates, which are very, very high. So my average office rent, I will tell you, is probably in the low 20s, because we have buildings in the high teens in Lake Zurich, further tertiary markets than here. And as you get closer and closer to the city, those numbers bump up a little bit into the 20s and into the mid. So we're in the mid 20s here. We're in the mid 20s in Northfield, which is about 10 minutes away from here. Okay. Another building very, very similar to this one without the same amenity package. But I would say that, on average for office product, we're around $22. On average for industrial, we're around $6 triple net. For apartment buildings, we're in the $1,500 per month per unit.
What I was trying to try to get them to is some sense of, although you call yourself a small guy, on average, you're responsible for the collection of over $10 million in rents a year. Sure. So we're not talking about an insignificant enterprise here.
No, it's and for who we are and how we run a very, very lean office. So it's myself, my partner John, who do most of the heavy lifting in terms of bringing in new business and then maintaining what we have, and then we have a staff behind that does a lot of the minutia, like that deals with in the billings and in the collections and in the some of the data entry and filing and stuff like that. So and then we have a maintenance staff. We have 6-person maintenance staff led by, we just hired a senior project manager who's a salaried position. So we have a project manager who now runs our 5-man team of maintenance guys and construction guys. So, I mean, it's, we're becoming a little bit bigger as we go.
Yeah, and I think that addresses a question that Sam was asking about how do you plan out all of these renovations? That's something you and I have talked about, is a asset management system and whether or not you have a project queue and a prioritized list of capital expenditures.
We're not there yet. We don't need that robust of a mechanism in order to do something like this. We come into the building, my partner and I will come in the building and we'll look at it and we'll say, okay, we need a new lobby. Now what? And him and I look at each other with a blank stare and we say, well, let's go find somebody let's go find a designer who knows what the heck they're doing, because this isn't my business. So we bring them in, we interview them, and then they present to us kind of conceptual ideas in terms of how this would lay out, what it would look like. They bring up a computer screen of potential models as to how it would look, and that's how we make those decisions. And then again, it all comes down to the budget, right? How much money do you have set aside for this? And invariably, you don't have enough. And invariably, you want to do more than what you've set aside. Like once you do one thing, it's like the domino effect. You want to start rolling into doing other things, but you got to kind of hold yourself back and use the budget kind of as your guide, and just don't go beyond it.
So let's go back to some of the numbers with this deal that began. So HFF brings it to your attention. Original market listing price was approximately how much did they want for you to buy this building?
They wanted $5.5 million.
$5.5 million was the basic ask market list. So now you're shopping the numbers and trying to see whether or not they work. You decide that they do based off of the 87% current occupancy being your full 100% conservative allocation. And now it's time to raise capital. Who did you get money from and how much from debt versus equity?
So we went out once we figured out that we were getting this deal at a great number. And I will tell you that the seller, in their haste and in their want of, because they're a very, very large firm. Nissner is not a small company. This was a very small piece of the puzzle for them. If they would have spent even a hair amount of more time on this, they would have realized they could have pushed me from the $5,025,000 that I spent on this. So we bought this for $5,025,000. If they would have said, well, we're not going to do this deal for a dime less than 5.4, I would have bought it at 5.4.
Yeah.
But be that as it may, that's how I knew I won on the buy, right? That's how you make money on the buy. Because then after, and I know this because after we were done and we closed on it, I got a number of calls from people saying, how did you pull that off? And I'm like, anyway.
That purchase price arbitrage, right?
Exactly.
Could have flipped that building right
well,
there.
that was part of the thing. I had mentioned to you that HFF was a company that their reach is more institutional. And so the mere fact that I got it was by mistake almost. And then when I ran through all the numbers, I was like, this is right down the middle for us. Why do these guys have it? And why don't I have any competition? And I just didn't have any competition on the deal. It was a very strange, but these things happen, and I always consider myself very lucky to be here.
So you need $5 million.
So I need five. So I need a hair over. Plus, it's not just the $5 million, right? It's we look at the TI, the tenant improvement dollars, and the any capex that we want to do, corridor improvements and stuff like that. And we say, well, how much money do we really want to raise for a deal like this? And we determined that the total raise was going to be around $5.4 million. And so, nonetheless, when we went out and got debt on this thing, I knew my loan to cost was probably going to be somewhere in the $3.5 million range, which means I had to come up with about 1.8 plus or minus. And so once I got the debt numbers really kind of locked in, the debt came back at $3,570,000. That's where they underwrote it at, and that's where they provided up to us. So that meant legit right on the number I had to go get $1.8 million. And so I have some heavy hitter investor types. It's all friends and family. I don't go outside of that. I haven't had to do that yet, which is kind of nice. So I went to one family who I met on the beach in Florida on vacation, and who mentioned their personal situation. I was like, you guys would be perfect investors for us. And after about 5 or 6 years, when we got to that conversation, he was like, hey, I'd like to see your next deal. This happened to be the next deal. And him and his father came in with $600,000 each.
$600,000 each.
Yeah. And then I have a local investor who Al knows, who came in with $500,000. So that brought us up to 1.7. And then my partner and I put in 100.
So only 5 of you in this deal all in, 3
There's
externals and the 2
4.
internals.
Yeah, there's, effectively
Yeah.
Crosstown being 1,
Yeah.
and then 3 other guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a nice, small, quick fundraise. It was not what I was expecting, but I was really happy to get there because I really wanted this deal. And it comes across in the investment book that we put together, how much, I think, on how much we think of this deal, in that it was very, very quick to raise this money. It took me a grand total of about an hour and a half to raise the money. So, which is lucky. I mean, again, it's taken me a lot longer on other deals, and some deals where I haven't been able to even raise the money. It's very infrequent, but when it happens, it's frustrating because I'm used to doing it very, very quickly.
So let's talk a minute or two about the cost of funds there for a second.
Sure.
So the debt you were able to raise at $3.5 million or so, you got at what interest rate, what term, et cetera?
So the debt that we got on this, because of the stability of this property and because of how long that we knew that we were going to hold this to us was a 10-year hold all day long.
10-year. Okay.
Yeah, and typically we don't like to put an arbitrary hold time on it, especially in a value add, but this was more of a stable type building that we felt we could own for a very, very long time, and that we could own really for almost as long as Missner, which is 25 years. Like, there's no reason why we shouldn't own this building forever. It's kind of one of those type of properties where you feel like it's always going to be able to produce income for you, and you feel very strongly about the market, you feel very strongly about the location, and therefore we went out and got long-term debt, which would be considered CMBS, which is a term for commercially mortgage-backed security, which basically means that we get 10-year money from a bank like Bank of America in this case. They take that note and then they go out to the secondary markets and they sell it off in the secondary markets. We were able to lock in an interest rate. I underwrote this, if you see in the analysis, I think at 475. I don't know what analysis that you showed them, but my investment book has it underwritten at 475. Well, that spring in that summer proved very, very advantageous for us because the 10-year treasury dumped, and all CMBS-backed loans pegged that number at closing to the 10-year treasury, and the 10-year treasury had taken a massive dump that late that spring and early into the summer. And so we ended up at an interest rate of 4.37, of which the first 2 years we negotiated interest only. So
Nicely done.
Yeah, so we negotiated an interest only debt on this for the first 2 years, in large part to bolster our reserves. Yep. So the reserve requirement that we have in our loan documents says that I have to put $1,000 a month in CapEx aside, no cap, right? I get to use that money whenever we need it, and we're going to be dipping into those funds now for all these upgrades around the building. But my tenant improvement and leasing commission reserve was capped at $200,000, which I felt was kind of heavy. Fortunately, we've actually, been kind of plowing through it a little bit with a couple of these new deals, but that's $4,200 a month that we have to set aside just in tenant improvement and leasing commission reserves.
Okay, correct. That is a little restrictive.
It's a little heavy. It's a little heavy, but it's okay because we're conservative by nature. We don't bleed the buildings for our own pockets. We tend to invest back into the building in order to keep the value and in order to keep the investors being paid regularly. Our investors have never missed a pref payment here.
And what did you promise them here?
8%.
An 8% preferred payment.
Yeah, and plus we've paid at the end of each year, we've paid more. We've paid a little bit of extra money out of it towards so we're reducing their initial equity investment in this thing, and their additional, their hard cash investment in this thing by virtue of having excess cash at the end of every year outside of the reserves that we're already putting aside. So it's cash flowing significantly.
So then, if, for example, I was the one investor who had made a $500,000 initial commitment to you, you're paying me an 8% pref, right as rain. I never have to worry about it or think about it. You're paying me a little excess along the way to get me earlier return to capital of that original 500,000.
Right.
Now, when you go to sell, what happens for me?
Well, what happens for you is whatever I haven't returned to you in that initial investment comes back to you first. After the bank gets their debt back, that's the next money out. So we think of it as a waterfall, right? So the bank gets the money first. After that goes any dollars that haven't been returned to our investors goes next. And again, this assumes that all your regular expenses have been paid and everything's hammered out. You don't have any lingering
Outstanding
bills,
liens,
right? You don't have
yep.
anything like that. So the investors get their original investment back. If there was pref that we didn't pay that is accumulated, that's next.
Yep.
Okay. After that, if there's any cash left over after that, we split it 50-50 between the investors and myself and my partner as sponsors.
So forgetting worst case scenarios of you can't lease a building and a deal doesn't work. If I'm an investor and I come to you and I plop down $500,000, I have a basic expectation that you're going to make me regular cash flow payments for the length of your hold.
Correct.
Plus, I'm going to get my $500,000 back. Plus, if you got anything left over, I'm going to get a little extra too.
Correct.
So I'm looking at better than an 8% return, more than likely.
Yes.
So what
I mean,
are you delivering on average?
The 3 buildings that we have sold so far, I mean, it's a little bit of it's a little silly.
It's a small
but
sample size.
Yeah, it's a small sample size, but I mean, we're in the 36% return on average.
So think about that. The promise that they're making is only 8%, and you're almost quadrupling
easily,
the expectation that an investor has. Is that
Under
promise
and over deliver.
Does that make it harder to raise funds in the future?
No, it makes it quite simple, actually. Yeah. We have guys that will call us and say that they're leaving for 2 months to go overseas, and here's a blank check. In the event that you happen to invest in something, I want to be in the deal. Just let me know how much it is. So that's the kind of investor group that we have, which is, we're blessed to have that. I mean, we've got a lot of guys who have been with us since day one, who are real estate guys who have been in this business, 2 or 3 times as long as I have, who started investing with us when they saw what our model looked like and they saw kind of how we operated. And once you get that kind of a start, I mean, it's almost like starting at second base. From there, it was wide open. So the guys that we meet, and we meet a lot of them who want to put money into deals, mostly guys like that want to put the $100,000 in that $100,000 range. We have 100 of those guys. Then the next level is that $500,000 level. I probably have 2 guys or 3 guys like that, and then I have 1 whale. The problem with the whales is they want the entire deal, and they want to structure it exactly how they want to structure it versus how we want to structure it. And so you do whale deals when you get to a point where it's a great deal that it requires $5 million in cash, and you're not going to be able to do that with friends and family. So you go to a whale like that, and then you give up a little bit more on the backside. So as opposed to a 50-50 split, an 8 pref and 50-50 split, it might be a 10 pref and a 70-30 split. So
Their favor?
Their favor, yeah.
Just to let you do
just to let me play with their money, but with only 1 raise, which means only 1 K1, only 1 set of only 1 investor letter that I got to write on a quarterly basis. Yeah. So there's a little bit to be had there.
Synergies on the front end.
And our whale did our first 3 really large deals and has not done one since. And I will not do another one with him if I can avoid it. So.
So Sam has one more question, then we're going to pivot to something theoretical for you for a minute. He just wanted to confirm, with this particular property, how long did it take from the time that you found it until closing on it?
4 months.
4 months all
approximately.
Is that normal?
No, we can do them a lot quicker, but the dynamic was a little bit of a complicated dynamic from their standpoint. They had multiple partners in the deal that were all principals, which is when you have a family business, this is what happens. And some of the family wanted to 1031 their money, so they wanted to take the money that they were going to make for this and roll it into a different deal. Yeah. And other guys just wanted to cash out. And so that required an extra month just to put together the legal documents to turn this into a TIC, a tenant in common. So we had to change a little bit of how we do business. We were gunning for a July 1 or a June 30th close, and we ended up mid-July, and it was really all their delay. But typically, once you find the building, you get to under contract. That's about a month right there. The contract negotiation is another 2.5 weeks, and then you have 30 days of due diligence, which puts you in about a 2.5 month period, and then you got about 15 days to close. So it usually should be about 3 months.
About a 3-month process.
Yeah, the process itself from start to finish should be about 3 months. This one happened to be a little bit longer.
How about talk about deal flow? How many deals are you looking at a year? How many get down to the point of actually getting an on-site, then a model built, then a purchase?
So there has to be a disclaimer on this because pre-COVID, our deal flow was significant, and I was looking at I would look at probably 100 deals annually, and I would model maybe 24 of them.
Okay.
I would go out to see 24 of them, and of those, I might like 2, maybe 2 or 3. So the percentage of the ones that I see that I get to the point where I actually model is very, very small. In large part because I've learned over the years. Now, when I first business, I would look at 100 deals, I would model 100 deals, and I would, and it was
visit 98 of
them. Yeah, I would
them.
visit 90. It was insane. But I got to the point where I learned over the years kind of where we really want to be and what kind of deals that we really want to be doing. And so we were able to really, really focus in a little bit more strategically and save myself a great deal of time on modeling and doing all the rest of it. But I mean, this year, we haven't bought one deal this year. I haven't gotten to contract on any deals this year, which is incredibly unusual. I will at least have gotten a contract with 1 or 2 deals. Even if we don't end up executing on them, we would execute on one of them perhaps. But this will be the first year where I have not gone to contract with a building and have not purchased a building since we started. So, and that's, you can thank the pandemic for that.
Well, let's finish with that thought then too. So we saw the largest tenant upstairs who's occupying 14% of your building, and they're coming up for renewal in 2022. And the sign on your door said, "Sorry, we're not in here anymore."
Right.
What do you think the pandemic is going to do to the future of commercial office?
So I think it's, we were already starting to see a lot more. It was almost like you were seeing the opposite of what's happening today. You were seeing offices that were condensing and being more and more dense with users. You weren't seeing private offices anymore. You were seeing stations. You were seeing collaborative stations and collaborative work areas and collaborative this and collaborative that. They were removing offices and making it one giant room where everybody could collaborate and sit together. Enter a pandemic and watch how quickly this pivots from that to we're going to be putting private offices back into all of these spaces.
Surrounded by plastic.
We're going to do plastic. Yeah, that I think is a little bit odd. But yeah, we're starting to see now HVAC improvements, elevator. We have guys that are developing elevators that the doors will open, the lights go on. You go into the elevator. Once you exit, the elevator recognizes that there isn't anybody in the elevator. The doors close and an infrared or the blue light goes on, cleans the elevator.
The ultraviolet,
the ultraviolet lights. So we're starting to see that kind of technology pop in. To me, these things, they come and they go. And I think there will be the lingering effect for this will be people will be a lot cleaner.
Yeah.
Everybody's hygiene is going to improve dramatically. But I don't really think that the dynamics of the office are going to change dramatically. I think that there are companies that realize they can send a lot of their administrative, less important type, menial task-ridden people to the home front to work. But I am still firmly of the belief that their offices aren't going away. There was an adage back in 9/11 when 9/11 happened here in America, where it was the terrorist attack on the Twin Towers, that people were going to stop flying. I remember people talking about how no one was going to fly again and how this is going to change the face of travel. Well, I mean, you saw that's actually, it's people that they get scared and so they move to one end of a spectrum. Same thing is happening here. People are scared, they move to one end of a spectrum, but eventually it all comes back to the middle. And this will not go without ramifications. There are companies like Industrious and some of these WeWorks and any of these collaborative workspaces, which are going to have to rethink their models a little bit and kind of rethink the way they want to present these spaces. And there are buildings that are being constructed right now. They're going to have to rethink the way that they're doing HVAC and plumbing and all the rest of this, and the water. How are you delivering water to people? And is it a fountain or should it be touchless? And should we have keys to our office buildings? Should it just be a keypad? Should it just be a handprint? Should it be a face recognition?
Yeah.
There's 1,000 different things that'll come out of this thing. Most of which I think are good, are technological advances, which will improve our daily lives in some way, shape, or form, and make things a little more efficient. But ultimately, People need people. They need to be in front of people. They need to be talking to people. I can't work in this business remotely on Zoom. It is impossible. Don't think that this is the normal, because it's not normal. I don't want to be Zooming. I want you all in a room with me where I can talk to you and look you in the eye. That's the only way I know if you're real. And that's the only way I know if you're paying attention. And that's the only way I know if you actually give a rat's ass about what I'm saying.
Which is why we have Sam as our one face.
Sam
right
is like
here.
the one guy who I can see right now. He's definitely like, oh, I'm paying attention. I got my coffee. I'm paying attention.
I always ask for at least one of them to have camera on, just so you can
Right.
see that they're alive. Otherwise, the other 40 are MIA. With that in mind, then, so with that tenant upstairs who is not occupied, they still paying you rent right now?
Yeah, most of our tenants, fortunately for us, are, they're small businesses that have certainly been impacted by this, but most of the businesses that we're dealing with are really service-based businesses, which haven't really stopped. They haven't stopped working. Our some of our tenants, like we have the most active tenants that we have across our portfolio are psychologists and psychiatrists who, even though they're not in their spaces, are getting crushed right now. They are so overwhelmed with business, they don't know what to do with themselves. Most of them are coming to us now and saying, we need to expand once we return to the office, because they're that busy and they're adding that many doctors. And that's unfortunately a side effect of sheltering people for years at a time in their homes away from other social beings. That's going to have a very significant effect on mental health. And so that's a little bit of a short-term thing that we're seeing. But I think ultimately, most of the tenants that we have are paying rent. They're on time. Those who are struggling, we are working with them. We do not abate rent. Unless my mortgage gets abated and my taxes get abated, I can't offer that same thing to the tenants. And so we defer rent in many cases. There has been some government programs here, as you know, to help small businesses through a payment protection program and a couple of other programs that are out there. But ultimately, our tenants are doing well and they're paying their rent.
And that's
fortunately for us, because I know that we are in the minority.
So it's approximately 18 or so after the hour, and I want to make sure that I'm respectful of your schedule because I know you have a deal to consider later today. So I wanted to offer to all those online the same thing that I had offered in the chat box, which would anybody like the opportunity to turn camera on, unmute themselves, say hello to Matt, and ask a question or two here before we go ahead and allow him to move on with his day? Sam, you've earned the right to ask a verbal question if you would like.
Sam Dane.
Yeah.
Well, yes, I had a question that I wanted to ask. I can hear myself double, but that's not important. I was wondering, ever tried doing a renovation yourself, or did you just hire people to do it? Do you have a preference, and how do you choose?
The question is
in-house versus contracted?
No, we'll do in-house. The most of the work that we do is going to be in-house to the extent that our guys are capable of doing it. That's a really easy way for us to control costs on a deal and not get nickel and dimed on time, frankly. And so we'll do in-house. We'll use in-house guys for the most part. There's a lot of things that are real specialty. Millwork is really specialized, and the installation of which sometimes can be specialized, so we might outsource that, but for the most part, we're using our guys to do the install. Carpeting, we'll use a carpet company many times because they can just do it much faster and much easier, much quicker, and much more inexpensively. But ultimately, we're using our guys to do painting and changing out a toilet, changing out tile in a bathroom. That's usually something our guys can do really well. So.
Simeon, I saw you came off camera there, or on camera for a second. Simeon, did you want to ask a question also?
No, just turning on my camera.
He's got a great background.
Yeah, he's a funny one. Now just turn on your camera so you could say hi. All right, great. Anybody else want an opportunity? Oh, is that Tessa? Did Tessa just log on? I saw a smile come on the screen. This girl smiles constantly.
That's good. We need more of that.
I can't read. Who's there? Someone else has their hand up right there. What's
Yeah, that's me.
Vlasta.
Vlasta.
Yes, Vlasta. I just had a quick question. With like so many buildings, what is your total debt, and what is your debt to equity ratio?
That's a great question. Our total debt right now is, I'm going to say approximately, this is a very approximate number, but approximately $30 million. So we're about 50-50.
About 50-50 debt to
Yeah.
equity. Huh. Is there a particular building that has a significantly lower amount of debt? Because aren't you usually going in at 70 plus LTV?
We're going in at 70 LTV, but most of the buildings that we have, we've been holding now for upwards of 10 years. So the building that we're in the city, for instance, we have 900,000 in debt on it, and it's worth $2.3 million. The building downtown Chicago on Wabash that we have in the South Loop has a $9 million note on it, and it's worth probably 18 today. And this building, for instance, we bought it, was 3.5 in debt, easily worth $7 million today.
So the combination of principal pay down plus market value increases over time have moved you off that 70-30 to more of a 50-50.
Yeah, it's not even, we're not even close. So again, that makes me able to sleep at night, even though I got bags under my eyes because I got kids. Okay, kids make me give the bags. That's not my work.
Parenting is horrifying.
Parenting right now. Oh my gosh.
I know.
So, but ultimately, yeah, we're in a really good position. We have not over levered. We do not. There are many companies in this business that make a ton of money by constantly refining their buildings, right? So when they refinance, they up the debt, they take out their equity, right? So all my partners have been paid off, which is a nice thing to have, but my debt load is really high, which means that if I get in trouble, I'm probably going to lose the building, frankly, or I'm going to be personally liable for that money. I don't ever want to be in that spot. My guys make enough money. Most of the guys that we are working with are multi-millionaires, many times over, and a few extra dollars isn't going to make or break them. And we have those open conversations with them, which I think is very, very important to do. You need to have these conversations with your investors to understand what their motivations are, even though we control the deal. That they can't tell me that I need to sell. We have our whale wants to sell one of our buildings right now, and I have a $500,000 penalty to the bank if I sell it. And so we've told them that we're just not interested in selling. So we might be buying him out of that deal. We're trying to pull that together, but those are the decisions that you have to make, strategic decisions that you have to make on a daily basis.
I'm going to tee you up for our session tomorrow then, which is clearly you're expert at understanding a building and its specific nuances, of modeling it to the point of it making financial sense. But ultimately, when it comes to getting an investor to act, how much of what you do is persuasive psychology?
It's all sales. It's all in this package that I put together, and then so I send them the package like this, and then we get on a phone call. And if I am truly passionate about a deal, which I typically am, if I've gone to the extent of putting together a Word document with colorful pictures on it, that means that I'm truly passionate about the deal. And I feel like that I could sell pot to the Pope if I had to. I mean, there are just guys that trust in what we do. They've been down the road with us. They've made a ton of money with us. And so it's not hard to convince these guys. If I feel good about it, it's not hard to convince them, if you can imagine.
Yeah. I've been having conversations. The Dutch style is very precision oriented. It's very respectful that way. And I give a lot of detailed questions about some of the rent rolls and other of the modeling assumptions. And what I keep trying to encourage them, and some of the teams have scheduled theirs for tomorrow and beyond, is make sure that they're meeting with their prospective investor to understand his motivation, so they can speak the deal in terms that matter to him and not them.
Right. That's important. And again, it depends on the size of the investor. Like if I'm an investor that has a net worth of 30 or 40 or $50 million, and I'm putting $100,000 into your deal, do I care about the details? No. I just care about what you tell me where we're going to be in 5 years from now. Do I think this is going to be a great deal? Yeah. Okay. Then that makes sense for me. And then there are guys where if I'm $1 million net worth guy and I'm going to put $50,000 into your deal, I'm going to want to know every ounce of information possible, because it isn't money that I can throw away. This is money that is generational to me, right? This is money that is being set aside to hopefully grow in order to put my kids in college. That's a much different conversation than the guy that has the $100,000 and the $50 million net worth. It's two completely different conversations. And I don't ever want to take money. I always tell my investors, this can't be money that that you need down the road. This is money that you can afford to burn and burn today, and that you can afford to lose. Not that I'm planning to lose your money. I never have, and I hopefully never will. But it can't be money that this can't be money that you've been setting aside for something really important in your life, or you're not my investor type.
And this is why Matt and I limit our investment activities to academic exercises, because I have $6 in my wallet that I gave to the garbage man this morning, because that's all that I had.
$8.
Oh, you have $8. Yeah, so that's our count. So Dutch, here's what I'd like you to do out of courtesy is everyone turn your cameras on here as we come to the end of today's session. And I'm going to put us into our traditional favorite view here so that in the closing, out of appreciation, why am I alt tab? Out of appreciation, come on, Dutch, there's lots of you out there.
Awesome.
Go ahead and turn your cameras on, and then
That's great.
I'm going to go ahead. Oh, there's my finance major right there. On a count of 3, you're going to dance for Matt. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, here we go. 1, 2, 3, right. 1, 2, 3, left. Now everybody wave and say, thank you, Mr. Bauman.
Nice meeting you all. Good luck with everything.
Dutch, I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.